Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Sioux Coach Cast. I'm your host, Chad Birger. Today, what we're going to do is recap the University of Sioux Falls Week 3 game against Minnesota Duluth, and then we will preview the upcoming game against Minot State. So to start off with, without further ado, we'll take a look at what happened in the previous week for University of Sioux Falls football. I'll bring up the stats here if you're watching online. If you're not, I'll try to do the best I can to read everything. September 16th, 2023, University of Sioux Falls traveled to Duluth, Minnesota, and played the University of Minnesota Duluth. The final score was Duluth 42, Sioux Falls 34. Scoring breakdown, Duluth scored 14 in the first quarter. It was 14. Sioux Falls matched them with 14 in the second quarter, but Duluth got another touchdown. Duluth scored 14 in the third, and then Sioux Falls actually put up 20 in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't quite enough to match that Duluth score. So the Bulldogs from Duluth finished with a 42-34 victory in the game. Scoring summary. To start off with 8:57 left in the first quarter, Kyle Waljasper, the multi-dimensional quarterback from Duluth, scored on a 1-yard touchdown run. PAT was good, so Duluth was up 7-0 at that point. They called a timeout with 2 seconds left, set up a Jimmy DeRocher 27-yard run, followed by a PAT. So as I mentioned earlier, Duluth was up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. The second quarter was pretty successful for the Cougars. They bounced back a little bit, and Camden Dean scored on a 1-yard touchdown run with 12:06 left. Nick Hernandez's kick was good. Additionally, that should read Duluth 14, USF 7 at that point. And then with 8:30 left, USF scored on a Matt Grozbowski 2-yard touchdown run. PAT was good. So at that point, it was all tied up at 14. The next drive, Duluth scored on a Kyle Waljasper 46-yard touchdown run. They went 3 plays and 75 yards in a minute 27. All 3 of them Waljasper runs to take a 21-14 lead going into halftime. The third quarter, a couple more touchdowns by Duluth. Waljasper scored on a 15-yard touchdown run with 11:40 to go. And then with 6:01 left in the third quarter, Shamir Thomas scored on a 31-yard touchdown run. At that point, Duluth was up 35-14. The Cougars could have given in, but no, little bounce back to start the fourth quarter with 14:35 left in the fourth. Dylan Rudnigan ran one in from 4 yards out. He ran another one in with 13:30 left. So at that point, it was 35-27. Waljasper did run a touchdown in with 5:09 remaining to build the gap back up to 2 scores. So it was 42-27. And then with 2:03 to go, the official stats have it listed as a Camden Dean 15-yard touchdown run. From my perspective, and I've watched the film several times, it looked like a 15-yard completion from Carter Slykehouse to Camden Dean. Those details can be hammered out by the league office, however they want to do that. But that was the final score of the game. It did close USF to within 1 score, but unfortunately, the Cougars were unable to come back and secure the ball for a final possession. Total stats here. For the game, Duluth outgained Sioux Falls 550-327. Passing yardage-wise, it was 270 for Duluth, 190 for Sioux Falls. Rushing, 280 for Duluth, 137 for Sioux Falls. Penalties, Duluth had much more penalties. Coach mentioned that on the postgame show. That was a big positive for the Cougars to kind of stay out of some of that stuff. And first downs-wise, Duluth ended up with 24. Sioux Falls had 17 for the game. And fourth down conversions was something really successful for the Cougars. Converted 2 fourth down conversions in the game out of 2 attempts. Camden Dean finished with 190 passing yards on 23 for 30, completing 23 out of 30 attempts. He also finished officially with 13 carries for 78 yards, and he had 2 total touchdowns. I will still contest that one of those was a receiving touchdown. Carter Slykehouse had 5 receptions for 74 yards, and I have him down for a touchdown pass. The Cougar tight ends also had 8 catches for 95 yards, and Michael Stenbrotten led the team with 8 tackles. There was also an interception by Matt Gearing, which was returned 26 yards, and a fumble recovery by Brendan Holt. Seamus Holt had 8 punts for a 47.8 yard per punt average, which was very successful for the Cougars. So now that we've covered the stats, let's go ahead and bring in Coach Glow and see if we can get a little bit of story from Coach Glow on what happened in the Duluth game. Welcome, Coach Glow.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So give us a little bit of recap, from your perspective on what went well and what things the Cougars need to improve on following the Duluth game.
Well, I think it's obvious. I think we played really hard. I think we fought till the very end. Our kids didn't quit, which I certainly didn't expect them to. We got to tackle better. That's certainly a big point emphasis. We've been working on that. Looking back from week 1 to week 3, I thought we fit the run much better. We just didn't always stop him and tackle him. And give them credit. They got a veteran offense with a big quarterback that runs the ball well. I think he threw the ball better than I anticipated at times, especially that first touchdown drive. He dropped in a nice pass to the corner up to the receiver who drug his toe, and they made some plays. But I thought our physicality level was extremely high. I know talking to some of their coaches after the game, they were impressed by how physical our kids were, and I thought we really came to play. And just really proud of the effort. We're not there yet. It's a work in progress. We're getting there. We're getting better. I certainly see the growth from week 1 to week 3, and excited to get back out this Saturday. I think you're muted.
It's like it's my first time on a Zoom call here, Coach. So last week we had talked, and you had mentioned maybe that I was the common denominator here, and I did call the game alongside Tom Frederick up there. The facilities left a little bit to be desired up in the press box. Tom and I were pretty much shoulder to shoulder the entire time, but hopefully I wasn't the cause for the loss over the weekend.
Well, I mean, the jury's still out. It's got to be blamed on somebody. I'm not taking the blame.
Real quick, Duluth did have, 10 plays of 20 yards or more. So you mentioned, you guys fit better. But, when opponents are getting through those gaps that they're finding in there, they're really turning those into really large positive plays. How are you going to address that with the team this week?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. If you tackle them at the line of scrimmage, right, you limit the big gains. And it's certainly, a couple of years ago, I was up there with the University of Minnesota, and the DC is Joe Rossi, and we were talking a little bit, and, in his mindset, any play over 25 yards is a direct correlation to how many points you give up. So under 25 yards is a big play. 25 yards is that breaking point. That's kind of what we go by, 25 yards. If you can keep a team without any 25-yard chunk plays, you're usually going to win most games and give up less than 10 points. It's just the stats over the course of several years and several seasons kind of points that out. So to me, that's the big play, 25, and we certainly have given up too many of those. But I think, whether it's 20 or 25 or 35, it's too many, right? And so we're trying to get people into third down. That's a big concern. I think, we had, 12 or 13 third down opportunities. They only had 5, which means that they're not going all the way to third down to try to get the first. And so we're not making them earn it as much. But, all in all, you look at the stats, and sometimes that stuff's a little bit misleading. I think we had 2 or 3 touchdown drives that were under 40 yards or something like that because of turnovers that we forced or interception return. Whereas I will say this, our punting game was on point. Our kickoff game was on point. Nick and Seamus did a great job making them drive the field a long ways. And so obviously the longer they drive, the more yards they get. You stop them sooner, right? You get better field position and so on and so forth. So it's a little bit of a, stats are important, but they don't necessarily tell the whole story. We had a chance to tie the game in the fourth quarter. We punted it back. We got to stop. We ran out of time at the end, and we just got to be more efficient earlier. We did fumble the ball going into score. 15-play drive, had a chance to really put some pressure on them, and we didn't do that. So, when you look at a game sometimes, the indication sometimes that you score 21 points in the last quarter to make it close, and there's this perception it was a close game when it really wasn't. I think that wasn't the case here. I think this is one of those deals where it was back and forth. We got up, they got up 35-14, and we made a couple scores. We got within 7. They scored. We got within 7 again. And, that's football, and they're a good football team. And I think that was Coach Weesey's 100th win, and congrats to him and their squad. They've done a nice job. But, I think our kids are getting better. I think we saw some really good things out of our offensive line. It was a pretty hectic blitz package they had, and really pleased. We didn't give up a single sack, which is pretty impressive considering how much those guys blitz. And, having a mobile quarterback who can make some plays with his feet helps. But, all in all, we got better. The expectation was to go up to Duluth and win. It wasn't to play close. I was not shocked at all. It was a close game at the end. I thought we would be there at the end, and I'm really proud of our kids.
Yeah, you brought up special teams. I thought the special teams played really well for the Cougars. You mentioned both Hernandez. He was booming those kickoffs through the end zone early on and putting you in good position. And then, later on in the game, the ones that weren't touchbacks, the coverage on those kickoffs was absolutely spectacular. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Coach Littlejohn is our special teams coordinator. Carlton coached our linebackers and special teams, and he's awesome. He's awesome. To me, he's just as critical as the OC and the DC, and I don't really tell him what to do any more than I tell the offensive guys what to do. He's got a great plan. They cover well. Those kids, give those kids credit. But, Veo Kamara, I mean, that hit he had where he separated the ball from that kid and his helmet, that was vicious. That was an awesome play. Huge play. Brennan Holt scoops it up and almost takes it in for a touchdown. I mean, you talk about game-changing plays. And I felt like in the special teams area, for what it's worth, I feel like we won that aspect of the game. And they really kept us in the game. We punted the ball really well. I thought we covered the punt really well. We're not giving up any big kickoff returns. So, like I said, I'm seeing these things that good football teams do. Solid in the kicking game. I think our punting game and our kickoff coverage game was really, really outstanding. We made every extra point except the one, which we got a bad snap and we mishandled the ball. That was probably the one thing that, obviously we could do better. But, all in all, I'm really pleased with those guys, and I think we're making progress there as well.
There was one small punting snafu. You tried a quick kick with your quarterback, Camden Dean.
Oh, no, that was by design. So
okay.
It was going to look like a kick. We tried to knock it out of his hand and bounce back to the quarterback, and then he was going to go around the end. And so actually, it's pretty well executed if you don't know what was really planned. So, no, it was – yeah, we had that little quick kick, and he saw the pressure coming off the field, and so he, instead of shifting the back over, he just sent him on the snap. Well, that's great, but we had, first time we've tried that, and it worked in practice, but he should have gone a little bit sooner or shifted him, and then he could have picked up the edge blitzer. The challenge is you don't know where the pressure is coming from on fourth down, and so when he saw the field pressure away from the tight end, he tried to go over there and pick it up. So it really was an aggressive mistake. The running back knew he had to go pick him up. Cam probably should have waited for another half a count before he kicked it. But, man, what a play by that kid. Picking the ball off the ground and making that first down, and that was a huge play. And I keep saying this all the time. We're making the kind of plays that you can win games with. We've just got to quit making the mistakes that are costing us games. And so, when you got guys that can make plays like that, when you've got a kicking game like we do, we're certainly talented enough to win some football games, and I think we'll see that as the season goes on.
Yeah, some real optimistic things for the Cougars going forward. Final score, Duluth ended up winning 42-34. How are the Cougars looking going into next week, coming back home, 2 long road trips? How excited are you to come back to the Bob and play a little bit?
Oh, man, and we had a really long weekend on top of that. It's a long travel day back and all that stuff. And our kids are excited to get back home. But we get to play football again on Saturday, get a chance to get out there and get a win, hopefully get to 2-2. The thing about it is that when you're on the road, there's no, everything's a little bit up in the air with timing and schedules and weather and all that stuff. And at least when you're at home, it's a pretty consistent routine. And so, we look back to meeting Dana and the fellas down there at the dining hall on Saturday morning, having our pregame meal and kind of going through that routine and being in our own locker room and all that kind of stuff. And there's a little bit of a sense of know what to expect. A lot of our kids, that was their first trip to Duluth, their first trip to Mary. Shoot, for some of those kids, that was the first time they was on a coach bus, traveling and how that all works. So, yeah, it's awesome to get back home. It makes the coaches and their families a little bit more relaxed because, for the most part, you leave at, 7:30 or 7 o'clock from the house on Friday morning, and you're getting back at 2-3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and then you're coming to work at 10 the next day. And yeah, so it'll make the next couple of weeks better from a standpoint of our just our personal schedules. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to get back home. I'm looking forward to play another football game, and I'm just really pleased with our kids, their effort, their attitude, and what we're doing moving forward.
Yeah. So this week, week 3, the opponent, as we mentioned, the Minot State Beavers. Saturday, September 23rd, it's in Sioux Falls at Bob Young Field. Kickoff's going to be at 1 o'clock. And, come out to the game. If you're in Sioux Falls this weekend, there's no excuse for not coming to the game. Come on out. Tailgate starts at 10 a.m. And the tailgate's actually going to be sponsored for the rest of the season at all the home games. So this one is sponsored by the Overtime Sports Bar and Grill and Vern Ide, the Coup Football Legacy Association. Line that up. They're going to have free food out there for people. I mean, free food and football. That sounds like a perfect Saturday to me. I don't know what people would be doing if they weren't out there watching a game. But if you don't want to join us, you can watch on the NSIC network or listen on KWSN. Some of you, if you come to the game, you can still bring your like Walkman or portable radio, and you can still pick up the audio stream. Tom and Tim are going to be doing the game on KWSN again. I'll be reporting on the sidelines again this week. 12:30 pregame show and then 1 o'clock kickoff. But feel free to tune in on that as well.
Chad, do you think the folks know what a Walkman is?
That's a good question.
You're a multimedia guy.
Yeah. So my kids know what it is. I do some history lessons with them on the Walkman. But yeah, portable radio. I've tried listening on the app, but there's a little bit of a lag, and so you actually have to pull it in from either 98.1 FM or 1230 AM to be able to get that live synced up audio. But yeah. I'll see if I can find a picture of that for next time so we can show up.
I got an 8-track in the basement somewhere.
So, Coach, a couple questions for you. Previewing the Minot State game. Minot's got an 0-3 record on the season. They lost a tough one the first week against Southwest, 28-23, and then kind of got a little bit beat up here the last couple weeks. Moorhead beat them 56-14 in week 2, and Mankato kind of whooped up on them here this past week, 52-25. What do the Cougars expect to see from Minot this weekend in this game?
Well, I think the first thing you got to look at is what they do offensively. Coach Shields is the new head football coach this year, kind of similar to Coach Shan up at Mary. And so, he's kind of like myself, kind of working through the process a little bit. And they're a triple option team. So if anybody that's a fan of triple option, these guys run it really well. They turned the ball over a few times early against Mankato, watching that film, but they had nearly 300 yards rushing and scored 25 points, which is about what we did against them as far as the points being scored against Mankato. So, I expect them to be a really physical football team. It's going to create a challenge for us because you don't defend the triple option every week. Kind of going back to the days of Army and Navy and even Georgia Tech when they ran it, it does present a different type of problems. And a lot of times you'll practice during the week without the scout offense even having a football, because it's so assignment based and everyone has to do their job, and all it takes is for one guy to not get his hands on the offensive tackle and there's a gap and the kid's gone, because they're very, very well schooled on what to do and how to do it. And when you're playing somebody who's that schooled at it, the scheme becomes so much more important than just physical presence or abilities, because it is an X and O game with this triple, and you have to do a great job of taking care of all the options they present.
So let's do a quick review of when you say triple option. You're referring to there's actually 3 potential players that could have the ball on a particular play. The first one is the dive. The fullback usually has that option, and then the quarterback could decide to either hand it off to the fullback or keep it. If they keep it, then they have the option after that of reading the defender and potentially pitching it to that running back. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. You're defending basically 3 ball carriers in one, and when you face a team that knows exactly how to do it, and a coach like Coach Shields, who's run that offense so long, it's almost like an automatic check. If you see this, do this. If you see this, do that. And obviously, if you're playing somebody who's not used to seeing that, you're not as quick to adjust. And so, the service academies will tell you that it's a great equalizer, right? You can be 6'6" and 300 pounds at defensive line, and if you can't, you don't see the block coming. You watch that film against Mankato, and there's guys getting knocked down all over the place because they don't anticipate this guy coming from that outside angle, because your eyes are in the backfield, and it's just a challenge. It really is. It's a big challenge for our defense. It looks like offensively, looking at them from an offensive perspective, they've shown 4 down front, and then all of a sudden last week they came out with a 3 down front. So we've obviously seen both of those. We see a 4 down every day, 40 down defensive linemen with their hand in the ground from our defense, and then of course we played some teams that have Duluth was all 3 down, only 3 down linemen for their defensive based package. So. Yeah, I mean, there's some things, some challenges that are going to be there. And, whether they have the personnel yet to run it the way Coach Shields wants, I'm assuming that there's probably a transition there, right, where he's trying to recruit certain players that have that skill set. And so he's taking what they had there at Minot and plugging it into his system. And from what I can tell, they're running it at a pretty high level. And
then how about passing-wise? What have you seen out of the the Beavers, in the passing game. They did throw it around a little bit. I think the first and second week they didn't have a whole lot of passing attempts against Mankato, but
yeah, just a handful, maybe 7 or 8 against Mankato. And so I think it's kind of one of those deals from week to week. The biggest concern you always have playing a triple team, and I even go back to in the early 90s when North Dakota State was running the veer option. You always get lulled to sleep, right? Stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. Next thing you know, they fake a handoff, they throw the ball over the top, and it's a touchdown, and you're sitting there scratching your head saying, how'd that happen, right? And so I know they have the ability to throw it. There's certain formations that are probably more likely to throw it out of than run it, but trying to get our kids schooled up on that in a short week as far as Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice, and go out there and play as well as you can. So yes, we will definitely do work on their scheme, but we have got to do a better job of blocking and tackling. And if we do that, we'll give ourselves a better chance to win no matter what scheme we're facing.
So one thing that, I kind of mentioned to you a little bit earlier, but is there any chance that this is going to be a potential for a trap game? Minot is 0-3 on the season, just got done with a big physical game against Duluth. And then next week, I know we had talked earlier, but you weren't even aware of the opponent, but Augustana is coming up the following week. Is there any potential for a trap game coming
Augustana, the crosstown rival, Augustana?
Yeah, that's cool. The key to the city game, yeah.
Yeah, the key that I see, yeah. No, yeah, I guess. I mean, obviously the definition of a trap game is that you're looking ahead to next week. I don't know about that. As a coach, just always been around coaches, myself included, that preach one game at a time. And, the reality of it is you go 11-0, you get to the 11th game, and everyone talks about how big a game that is. Well, it's the 10 games prior to that got you to 11-0. The way I look at it is we want to win as many games as we can. Here's an opportunity to win a game. Let's go out and invest everything we have into this game. There will be nobody on our staff peeking ahead, watching Augie film or getting ready for Augie or doing some work on Augie because, quite frankly, we're not good enough to be, taking anybody lightly, number one. And number two, those guys are on scholarships. Those guys work hard. Those coaches are committed to their cause. They're doing a good job up there recruiting and developing their system. And I just think from a professional standpoint, it's a lack of respect to not prepare for somebody and give them everything you have. And, we'll worry about, whoever's next, Augie or whatever, it's Sunday after. A week from today, we'll be working, talking about Augie. But right now, we need to worry about getting better. We need to tackle better. But I understand what you're saying about a trap game, the idea that you're looking ahead to a big rivalry and you don't prepare as hard. But that would also imply that as a coaching staff, you're talking to your players about Augie and not Minot, and you won't hear any of our coaches talk about Augie this week. It'll be all about Minot.
Well, Coach, looking forward to it this weekend. Big opportunity to be at home again for the Cougars. Haven't been home since last month, August 31st. So first home game in September coming up here. Starts at kickoff at 1:00 against Minot State. Like I said, tailgate party is going to be rocking. Let's go ahead and fast forward here, and let's do some questions that we received in the mailbag this week. A couple of them from a few friends. Number one, our friend Mindy asked if you run into negativity online, whether it's on Twitter or any other social media, how do you deal with that?
My wife probably doesn't deal with it as well as I do. She gets all fired up and she kind of the mama bear claws come out and the message boards and all that kind of stuff, and people say things, and there's some really good resources out there, which is really cool. So it's kind of like the thing, be careful what you wish for. You want coverage, you want attention, but then all of a sudden when someone says something negative, you're like, this isn't right. So I kind of take it with a grain of salt. The reality of it is that, I get messages sometimes. It's wild. You'll get a message from somebody that'll say something about one of your players and you have no idea who sent it. And they're telling you something about this kid that he did this, he did that. I can't believe you'd allow that. And you're like, I don't even know who that person is that's reaching out to me. And, so I deal with a lot of that stuff. And I think you try to have a balance, because it's like anything else. As soon as you start thinking you're great, you're going to be, a loser the next week, and you can go from the penthouse to the outhouse in a matter of days. And so I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. I'm really passionate about how we do it. I think guys like you that were on the bus with us, or Tom, or, Tim and all that, and you see how we handle it and how we treat our kids and all that. And so I don't have time to really look at all that stuff. I got a really good friend of mine, Matt Witwicky, I think you know him as well, that runs a phenomenal site over at d2football.com, and they do a great job. Tom's part of that too. And there's some really good information on there, and it's awesome they cover us. But quite frankly, I can't worry about if somebody on there named I'll take my friend Laker, for example. Laker, I didn't know who Laker was until I was at Mankato for a couple of years, but he's a big, Maverick fan, and he says things. And at least I'll start worried about when Laker starts calling me a bunch of names, then maybe I'll get worried about it. But for the most part, the people that say things, my mom used to always say, if you don't ask, when you need advice, if you don't ask them for advice, then why do you care when they give their opinion? So if I'm not going to call that person for advice, I don't care what their opinion is, right? So most of these people that are critical, and it's so easy to sit back there on Saturday after you've watched 7 replays in slow motion on your HD TV and say, I can't believe that guy would make that call. I got a couple comments about the timeouts. Well, I've been in that situation so many times. I know how important it is to get a first down there. I'm not even thinking about saving timeouts because in my mind, that's a negative mindset. As if to say you're going to need to stop the clock late in the game. I fully anticipated to not need the timeouts at the end because we're going to win the game, right? And so that's my mindset all the time. And if you have a strong mindset, and this is my 9th year of being a head coach, so I got 2 daughters, so I've been called every name in the book, anyways. And I got a 9-year-old and a 21-year-old, and between those two, and you can't say much more. It's going to hurt my feelings. They have already said it at one point or the other.
Well, speaking of your daughters, the next question came in from our friend Twitterless Jeff. Jeff was wondering how your family and you are settling into the Sioux Falls and the USF community.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. It's such a great place. People here are so great. The other coaches in the department. A lot of people know that we're going through a search process for an athletic director, and everybody has stepped up. And to see that kind of, certainly you don't want to replace people like that all the time, but to see the people respond in the department and then on campus, people supporting me and supporting the program. And I get text messages after wins and even text messages after a loss. Guys are like, hey, keep your head up. And one of the all-time greats, Sid, is always hitting me up on a Monday morning, give me words of advice. And that just makes you feel like you're a part of it, even though I've been here for a short time. As far as my family is concerned, I think it's been well said that my wife's from Sioux Falls and her mother is here in town. So, Saturday they didn't make it up to the game. They're watching it online and listening online. And my mother-in-law gets to come over and hang out with my daughter. And, today she's going to pick her up from school and take her to dance. And my wife is working and all that stuff. So we've never had that before where our family was here in town with grandparents and all that. We've always been in a town that's been, a decent amount of ways away. So we're enjoying that. I got a beautiful family that win, lose, or draw. They still love me, I think, and the dog still loves me. And so, I just the older I get, the longer I do it, keep it in perspective. There's not a single kid on our football team that doesn't want to win every game, that doesn't want to play every snap. And I just try to keep that in mind. Our coaches are working hard, but it's a great town. It's awesome. I love the fact that I can, go get something to eat somewhere different all the time, even though, Slim Chickens and pretty much my spot. My daughter's a big Panda Express, so we could hit them both in the same drive home last night. My wife was out of town working, and we got some Slim Chickens. We got some Panda Express and went home. And, I just really enjoyed it. Really, really fortunate and blessed to be here. It's the winning and the losing hasn't changed anything with me because it really is a process. You're talking about 365 days, and I'm not going to allow 11 Saturdays dictate how I treat the kids or how we act. We'll get there. We're going to get there. Are we going to get there this week? I don't know. It's like I tell the kids all the time, you bench 200 pounds and you want to bench 300. Well, you're not going to bench 300 pounds tomorrow, no matter what you do. And we want to win every single game, right? We didn't win every single game this year, but that doesn't mean we can't still finish strong and play well and then see what happens at the end. So, long story short, I'm really enjoying it here. It's awesome. People like you I've been able to hang out with, and Tom Frederick and Tim and all the people on campus have been phenomenal supporting us. The Legacy Association, shout out to those guys, Rocky Rayfeld, Trevor Holloman, it's so cool that Alex Anderson's another guy, that those guys are supporting us and putting on this tailgate. And those guys get all the credit for getting the overtime sponsored and Vern Ide. And you talk about going to a college football game where you can have some drinks and some food and socialize and hang out, and you don't got to pay an arm and a leg. And parking's not a problem. It's free. Come on out, support the coup.
Yeah. It sounds like a win to me. I was kind of I spent a lot of time talking to the assistant coaches this past weekend, and I was surprised with how many of them have never had Taco John's. So maybe after the season, I'll have to get all the coaches together, and we'll have to do a trip to Taco John's sometime.
Well, I don't know what the deal is, man. You gotta know some people to get invited to Taco Tuesday. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, man. I get you. I don't know. We'll have to see how that shakes out. I just want a few Olays. I don't want necessarily even tacos. I'm a big Olay guy.
Well, I'll make sure that happens, Coach. Our last mailbag question here is from our friend Sam D in Sioux Falls. He says, or he was wondering, he said, you don't get a whole lot of opportunity to go out and tailgate, but if you were able to join the tailgate, what type of food are you looking for in a good tailgate party?
Oh, just give me your burger, your classic burger and a brat. I mean, I love that. Love to grill at home, right? But yeah, definitely, if I was a tailgate guy, I'd probably have a few Pepsi Zeros and a couple burgers and give me some Dorito Cool Ranch and some potato salad. I'm ready to go.
You don't need anything over the top. You don't need like ribs or any of that stuff.
Only when I'm at home, because I'm the guy that's got it all over the place, the ribs. I mean, I'm using hands. I'm this. Pulled pork, I can do pulled pork. I can live with that. I just don't like to grill for 8 hours like some people. I don't like to smoke everything. I just want it ready to go. I want to order it and go.
Well, that's fair, Coach. Any final thoughts before we call it a week here?
No, great having you on the trip. Really proud of the kids. All in all, we had chances. We went up to a place that was a cool environment. Kudos to those guys. It was Military Appreciation Day. They had 4 jets fly over with a huge American flag, and they had some Harley Davidsons as we walked into the stadium firing up their bikes. And really pleased with our kids' effort. Disappointed we didn't come out on top, but we got to get back at it. And that one's in the rearview mirror, and let's look forward to Minot.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Coach. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up next. To do that, I'm going to promote the Sioux Football Legacy Association. Go ahead and log into SiouxLegacy.com on the World Wide Web of interconnected computers and check out their website. You can check out their mission statement, which is to bring alumni, family, friends, and supporters together to help equip the USF football program with the resources necessary to continue its winning legacy. The Sioux Football Legacy Association will be at the tailgate party this weekend. So if you want more information, just ask around at the tailgate party this weekend. Come join us, have some free food, check it out, and they will be available. So that's all I've got for this week. Until next week, stay safe, my friends. We'll hopefully see you this Saturday. Go Cougars.